duh,
Yeah.
it's important. I don't just mean that. It's actually like this new level of this next level of giving, not just of your money, but of your time, of yourself, of your talents, is like this whole canopy above what we've been doing and how we've been living. It's this like next layer of your heart bursting open and fulfillment and meaning. So that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just like, oh, this is a good thing and we should give back. It's actually seeing like how much you get back when you give.
Well, and I think that you're saying that too, because we're constantly talking about life after kids, and we're in this phase where the kids have grown up, we're getting older, we feel this push to like, I really want to make my life fulfilling and meaningful, and contributing and giving back in some way, your time, money, talent, whatever it is huge for feeling more fulfilled.
So fulfilling.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Life After Kids with Drs. Brooke and Lynn. I'm Dr. Brooke.
And I'm Dr. Lynn.
And we just told you it's like day 3 of recording, and not only speaking to each other and to the camera, but watching ourselves on camera, sometimes it's not so fun.
Any case, we're going to rise above that, rise above the vanity.
Yes.
About something much more
important
and meaningful. We're talking about, it's the holidays, and we're talking about the special ways that we can contribute and why it's important.
I love it. I love the holiday season. And we've done various episodes over the last 2 years or so on different aspects of the holidays. But this one is really near and dear to my heart. I'm really big on contribution.
I think this is so important, and I've learned it. I think you've had a great example. Your parents, like I just always impressed upon me the stories about your dad in particular and your mom, though, really, and both.
Yeah.
With just opening their hearts and their homes to people in need. And I think that's just such a beautiful example that you can give your children. I'm not going to say my parents were stingy, but we didn't have similar stories to share, like the ones that you had. But I've really grown to see the importance of this the older I get.
It's so important.
So important.
And I think too, just for like, once again, you said I was raised, like I watched my parents contribute in a very meaningful way. And when we're talking about contributing, we're talking about giving back, right? In some way.
And can I just say one thing?
Yes,
because
please.
It's like, all right, like giving back, duh.
Yeah.
It's important. I don't just mean that. It's actually like this new level of this next level of giving, not just of your money, but of your time, of yourself, of your talents, is like this whole canopy above what we've been doing and how we've been living. It's this like next layer of your heart bursting open and fulfillment and meaning. So that's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not just like, oh, this is a good thing and we should give back. It's actually seeing like how much you get back when you give.
Well, and I think that you're saying that too, because we're constantly talking about life after kids, and we're in this phase where the kids have grown up, we're getting older, we feel this push to like, I really want to make my life fulfilling and meaningful, and contributing and giving back in some way, your time, money, talent, whatever it is huge for feeling more fulfilled and living meaningful. And I've always
I think for a lot of people, it's a missing link.
I think it might be. I mean, really, I think that we can discount how powerful it really is and what it can do for you on so many levels.
Yeah.
And I think in this phase of our life too, because our kids are older, and actually I just wrote down, I want to do a whole podcast on this, of like, because I feel the sense of like, how can I leave the world a better place for my kids?
It's about legacy.
And my grandkids. Yes. Now we're starting to think about not what we're doing, but what we can leave. And I hope that doesn't sound morbid, like we're on death's door, because we're not. It's so much life to live.
But here's the deal. We're all thinking it, so we're just talking about it.
That's true. Maybe that's right. Yeah. Actually, yeah. I think we all think about it in some way. I don't know. I think some of us just completely ignore it. I don't know. Because I had that conversation with my mom and her friends once when I was with them. Yeah. They're like, in their 70s, getting closer to 80, and I was like, I don't know if this is like a bad topic for you guys, but just with life after kids, like, how do you feel like at your age and like thinking about how close you are to the end? Like, what does that feel like? I wasn't being mean. I really wanted to know where their headspace was and how, because
it's a tricky question.
I was in a place where I was really, this is so off topic, but like, just, I was really processing, thinking about my age and the years that I had behind and how much I had left, and just feeling this sense of like, oh, I was feeling a little about it. So I wanted to just process with them and get their take, because you always, if you have mentors in your life or people that have done it already and, you know, are there, it's nice to hear back from. And they're like, what do you mean? I was like, well, like, aren't you thinking through, like, you're more towards the end of your life? And they're like, I was trying to say it in a nice way, like, does it bother you that you're like, in 10 years, I'll be like almost 90, and, you know, like, what? And they were like, well, I'm not sure what you're talking about. We don't really ever think about it. We just live our life and have a great time. And I was like, wow, okay.
Maybe
some people don't think about it. They're like, we literally don't think about it.
Yeah, like, don't. Just
so some people I think don't. But anyway, I digress, and that was off topic.
I love that.
But yes, I think this is a missing link for a lot of us feeling more meaning and fulfillment and joy in this phase of life. And I'd love to talk about it this time of year, because we all know that it's better to give than receive. But like, there really is something that does to your heart when you're doing something for someone else.
Yeah, I mean, the right thing to say is you don't contribute or you don't give in order to get back. And if you did go about it that way, you wouldn't feel the same. You wouldn't. That's like such a oxymoron kind of thing, or contradiction, I guess. Like, the motive matters. If you go into contributing and volunteering or giving of your time and talents, expecting something back,
right,
or only for that outcome, you wouldn't feel that. You would feel like it was out of balance. Like, here I am giving all this stuff, and I'm getting nothing back.
Right.
You know, you'd say that to yourself.
Yes.
So you do have to go into it with the law, with that law of exchange, with like expecting to give. But when you have the correct motive, the world has a way of, and depending on your beliefs, we're Christians, but God has this way of designing things. When you do good, good comes back to you. And that's what we're talking about, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You're not you give for the sake of giving,
right?
And for me too, it's just, I think, and I've felt this through my life, because I always, and we talked about this in another episode, have this sense of like I'm so blessed, like I'm waiting for the ball to drop. So I always have felt this sense, but even the older I get and just seeing my kids going on and living their lives and how blessed we've been, I feel the sense of, I have been so blessed in my life, even just to get to the point where I am. How could I not do something in return for that? Like, life is not about just take, me. How much can I stockpile? How much can I just, do you know what I mean?
Yes.
And I've had a strong sense of that all my life, but even more so now.
Yeah, it's like what you're saying is like, you listen to, it's almost like a little like voice of, you have an obligation or you have a responsibility in some way because you have been given so much. It's that same law. So you've been given good, so you want to give good back, right?
Yes.
It's a revolving sort of kind of energetic,
right,
magnetic type of principle.
I wholeheartedly believe that. And you mentioned that we are Christians, and the Bible does say, to your point about like, you don't do it for the accolades or what you're going to get. The Bible is very clear that when you give, you don't talk about it or speak it to anyone. Yeah. You're not doing it for the,
right?
Yes, exactly.
Right. Yeah.
And that's not, obviously, like, that's if you're giving monetarily, but people are going to see that you're donating your time. Like, maybe you're not saying to my friend, guess what I did today, but
maybe give it a shot, not posting on Facebook that you give something. I mean, I'm not telling you what to do, but maybe think about not doing it, because again, that's, your motives are going to be different. And if you actually do it in secret, like, that's a leap of faith, because you have to do that to see what's going to happen. And personally, from my experience, it's this elevated experience. It's hard to explain when you do something in secret and you don't tell anybody about it, but you just know that you've done good.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
Yeah. So, I mean,
we've had those instances in our lives where we've, helped people out, and I'm not going to, because somebody
Right,
that's
we're
listening might know us, and so if I even allude, then
We're
they'll
not
know what
gonna
we did.
tell what
But
we
there
did,
have
but-
been big things that we've done for somebody that was down and out, or that somebody that had a sickness or something that was trying to make ends meet, that nobody except that family. And I think there might have been an occasion where maybe even the family didn't know that we helped. And I'm here bragging about what we said we shouldn't brag, but I'm just saying, like,
You're not bragging, you're sharing.
I'm just sharing that, yeah. And by the way, even you mentioned, like, maybe not shared on social media. The benefit of sharing something, like, now I'm going on the other side, but the benefit of sharing that is
social proof and conscience.
Right.
Yeah.
And maybe spurring someone else on to do it, or making somebody aware of an organization or a need that others didn't know about. I mean, we
That's very true.
out with
That's a great point.
organization that works with homeless and veterans in the state, and I always share what we've done, because I share the link if people want to donate. So
that's great. And so and there could be like a middle ground there where it's like, you don't have to say like so and so gave this much money to, probably doesn't do that, right? It's
we worked for 50 hours and I know what you're saying.
Yeah. So we're talking about it this month because December is National Giving Month. It makes a lot of sense. You can kind of
I don't think I knew that.
Yes,
I know about like Giving Tuesday.
Yes,
and I wonder if we're right around Giving Tuesday.
I believe it's like the first Tuesday in December, right?
I think it's usually like the Tuesday after, because like you have Black Friday after Thanksgiving, and then Cyber Monday, and then isn't it Giving Tuesday right after that?
Well, that's kind of perfect. Yeah, and it's kind of practical to have it then, because we've got some year-end contributions. We all know that we're not giving because we want a tax deduction, but if you are giving, why not get the tax deduction? It's a win-win. Of course. It's a win-win. So that's part of why we're talking about that. So, I mean, it's one of those times a year though that you're already spending so much money. So the opposite point of that is you're putting so much out, and it strains a lot of families, Christmas, with all the gifts and things and just extra food. And I mean, especially now with expenses going up. So another thought to this, if you're really listening to us, we're going to talk about it in terms of December and year-end giving. But if you're on board with giving, but it's just hard for you to do that in December, think about budgeting throughout the year. And that's what we do. We look at our percentage that we're comfortable giving, and we have a goal each month, and each person in the family can pick a different charity each month, and we assign the months to a person, or something comes up. Like we've had several months where it's like, oh, that's perfect. We need to that's where our money's going this month.
Yeah.
And then it's budgeted for it, and you can be comfortable. Because I think a lot of reasons why people are held back from giving is just what you said. Like we have a security threshold, right? And many of us are not comfortable giving just because we feel like we have to hoard money because of bad times, or we've had major financial setbacks in the past, and we want to make sure we're protected and so forth. I think it goes back to, again, when you give and you take that leap of faith somehow, and you'll hear stories after story after story. It's not a guarantee, but when you give more, somehow abundance seems to come back around.
Yes.
It's a way of thinking, I think.
Absolutely. And you started off this conversation saying, because we're talking right now about giving monetarily, and I do love that advice, like don't wait until the last minute. And isn't it interesting that we have Black Friday where we spend, and then Cyber Monday where we spend some more, and then would you have any left over? Because now it's Giving Tuesday. Maybe it should be Giving Friday and then spend. But to your point, I think that's a really great idea. Or even, maybe like I have set up that when money comes into my checking account, I automatically have that a certain amount goes into my savings so that I can build up for stuff like that.
That's great.
That I don't even see it. It's automatically going. I don't even know I'm doing
spending.
It can go either way, but that would be a suggestion. Like if you did want to give, budget, or have a certain amount from your checking account to go into a separate savings account that you don't even see, and you don't know it's coming out, but it's sitting there so that when something comes up that you can give, it's ready for you to do.
I love that. I think that's great. It's super practical, right? Sometimes too, you want, so we're all about examining things. If you are restless, if you are not feeling meaningful, if you are or meaning, I guess, rather, if you're feeling like life just feels a little shallow and you're a little cynical, or there's a lot of scenarios that could play out here. I mean, there's a lot of you out there that know that something's not quite right in your life after kids. And there's multiple solutions, but what we started this off with is that it could be that this is the missing link. And this is a sleeper hit, right? A sleeper cause
Right.
of things. But once you start to open up that faucet of giving, you may just feel like that restlessness and that, so I guess don't knock it till you've tried it. In other words, like,
yes,
get in there,
don't know
try it out.
How far-reaching it can be, or what it can do for you.
Perfect.
And we've talked about this before, because for me too, like when I'm in an emotional low point, sometimes the best thing, if you are struggling, and you have problems, the best thing you can do is take the focus off your own problems and go help somebody else with their problems.
Fantastic.
So that, even just that in itself, I mean, and I think we can have the tendency, especially in this phase of life, to get into this of like, oh, woe is me. My life is so, like, my kids are grown and I'm lonely. And I'm not saying this to be mean or to like minimize how we're feeling, because it's okay to feel that way. But if you can step outside of that and maybe go serve at a soup kitchen or help with a human sex trafficking safety house and see that, wow, as bad as I'm feeling for myself, I'm pretty stinking blessed.
Right.
I mean, I live in a safe place. I have a roof over my head. I have kids that might not be in my house, but they're around and they're healthy, and I'm provided for. I'm having my basic needs met. There are so many people in the world that do not have that.
It helps you to focus on your blessings versus like what you're missing.
100%. And this time of year especially is such a great time to do that.
Yeah, because Christmas can be really commercial and like very, dare I say, like hedonistic a little bit, because it is so much about the stuff and the things.
Right.
And it has, I think, become that way just because we're not passing judgment on it. It is, right? All the commercials and all of the
I do it too.
products, I'm
out there buying with everybody else.
Absolutely. It's just sort of something that you get swept up in. And so it can feel very out of exchange. You can feel like you're just like, back to, the point that you made, which I loved, is if you're taking, that that's where that uneasiness can sometimes come from. And so to offset some of that, you may need to budget for some giving in December. If you have that conscience, I guess, check around the time, like, are we doing too much? Are we spoiling the kids? If you're asking yourself those questions, it's never a bad thing to just go give some time, go give some money.
Yeah.
I guess, just
offset it.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I was like, just to make yourself feel better. I mean, that's not the reason, again, that's not the motive you do it, but you do it because of that exchange, that law of exchange. When you're taking so much, you have to give.
Yeah. Or if you're feeling bad in your own life or bad for yourself or a little sad and down. And by the way, again, this time of year is when a lot of us are feeling the most depressed or the most sad or the most whatever it is for various reasons. And sometimes a good way to pull yourself out of that funk is to go and help somebody else and just, get a fresh perspective on how good your life actually is.
Totally.
So important.
Totally. And, we're talking a lot about money. A lot of our examples are, give money, but it really can just be your time. We've done that. We've done volunteering. We're a small family. So sometimes if we're not celebrating a holiday with our extended family outside of the town that we live in, we're finding ourselves with, like, for instance, Thanksgiving Day, where it's just the three of us. So last year, again, not to, hey, look at me, we did this, right?
Which we just said,
I didn't post pictures on Facebook, I promise. No, but we did. We went and we volunteered on Thanksgiving, and they were at a domestic abuse shelter, and they were like, what are you doing here? They were actually so like, why aren't you guys home? And I thought we would show up, because I've heard of a lot of people doing that, serving food.
Yeah.
I thought we would show up there and there would be tons of volunteers. And she's like, we never get volunteers on Thanksgiving. So it turned out to be a real need. And we felt really good about that at the same time, just because.
Was this last Thanksgiving?
Yeah.
So, in fairness to you, I didn't know you did that. I'm just finding out right now that you guys did that. You never even said that.
Mm-hmm.
That must have been amazing and so good for Lila.
It was. I mean, we certainly left there feeling like we did something productive and like worthwhile.
Yeah.
Right. And then we went home and we had a nice dinner. I think with a homeless shelter, it was probably going to be busier. With a domestic abuse shelter, sometimes they have like families that they can go visit.
Mm-hmm.
They're just staying there temporarily, but
Yes,
and
sure.
they're getting protection there. So I'm certainly glad we helped it. We have a real heart for that particular charity because they take in women and children, and they do really, really, really good work in our community. But yeah, it was super, super humbling. Like to your point, where you're serving these people food, and they have very little, and they're finding themselves in like talk about a setback, talk about a major, major setback.
Yeah.
You know, and it certainly puts things in perspective. Right.
For sure. And that's where I say, if you are in a good place in your life overall, you know, I say this for myself, who am I not to
Right.
help out somebody else that's in
so
need?
Great. Who am I not to do that?
Yeah. Right. I love that. I love that example. And I think I've talked about this before, but my father-in-law for years, he moved to Florida, so he lives by himself. He's the last couple of years he's been coming for Thanksgiving, which has been great. But he almost every Thanksgiving before that for years has been serving at a homeless shelter and like a soup kitchen.
And I mean, so do what you can. And if you're not going to get your family there every Saturday, that's not realistic. But if you can do it on one day of the year, fantastic. What I'm saying is if you have extra time now that your kids are maybe older, think about doing it regularly, because that consistency over time is just going to pay you back in leaps and folds.
And I think that, you know, one of the reasons we wanted to have this discussion too is because so many of our moms have reached out and feeling really sad, particularly around the holidays, just because they're feeling that sense of the magic of the season is gone. Even if their kids are around, the kids are older. But for many of us, the kids are either off with their friends, or they're with their girlfriends or boyfriends or significant others, spouse, whatever now.
Yeah.
And if you are in that position and you're feeling like the holidays are not what they were, there's nothing to do, or I'm sad, or I'm bored, this could be a great opportunity to go and serve somewhere.
So such a great opportunity.
And by the way, let me flip that around for a second, because we're sitting here and we're talking about donating to organizations, or maybe giving money that you know someone specific that has a need that you can help. And then to your point, serving at an organization. But what about, and this is contributing as well, if you know somebody, so let's start here. If you know of a family who's by themselves, whose kids are away, or an older couple that their family is not around, or a widow, or whoever that may be that's lonely. Boy, what better to make somebody's holiday and to have a sense of giving than to invite them into your home and to spend the day with you.
That really seems like accessible to me, just sitting here listening to you, right? And I think most of you probably would agree that that's not very hard to do. It takes you like opening up your home, which is that's a big deal, but that's the more the merrier, right? If you adopt that type of perspective.
And I say that from a place of seeing that in action. I'm not just saying this from making it sound easy or that we should be doing it, because my parents did that with us all growing up. To the point, I don't know if I've shared this before, but like some questionable people that probably shouldn't have been in our home, but they had big hearts.
It was the 80s.
Yeah, they had big hearts. So this is so funny. So my dad's the one that invites everyone all the time. He always would have people in our house. And as my brothers and I got older, we were like, what is he thinking? Like, who, you know?
Who are these people?
But then when we got older, and when I was still living in Pennsylvania and my brothers are still both there, we would have the holiday. So my dad started inviting people to our house. So one year, this is so funny, my dad had a patient, God rest her soul, I think she's since passed. I think her name was, it doesn't matter what her name is. But anyway, she was all by herself. She was widowed. She had no kids around. It was Thanksgiving. She was going to be spending Thanksgiving by herself. So my dad invites her to my brother's house, who's hosting Thanksgiving. Well, she shows up at 10 a.m. She knocks on my brother's door. It's still a long-running family joke because my brother and his wife at the time were like having a glass of champagne and enjoying a little bit of the parade and prepping the turkey. And up shows, I think her name was Ellen, and they're like, well, Thanksgiving dinner doesn't start till like 2 or 3, so, and she's like, well, that's okay, I'll just come in and wait. So they had the whole morning with her. And my brother, we always, my dad has such a big heart, but sometimes we're like, can you just rein it in just a little bit?
Put a little guideline around it. Yeah.
But we did have her, and then we had her that year at my house. I hosted Easter. She was with us for Easter. Had never met her in my life. She knew my dad, but what a sweet person. And she was and it was so nice because she was elderly and our kids were little, so she got to like love on them, and it was really sweet.
Wow. I'm just sitting here thinking, like, to her, that was probably her whole world, like her whole year, that somebody would be that kind to do that.
And I think we should be open-hearted to more people. I hope that my hope would be that we would see that more this season and in the seasons to come. Just people in our communities that we could touch in those ways. That's a simple thing to do. That doesn't require a lot of money. It doesn't even require extra time because you're already hosting and cooking. But I think we need to think of it in the perspective is that could be me someday. Mm. And I would hope that, treat other people the way you want to be treated. That if I'm ever in that position in my life, that somebody would recognize that and invite me. Mm. I mean, for real, I'm not trying to be cheesy, but
I feel that. Like that just sinks, that weighs heavily, thinking about that. Like because truthfully, we can all do a little better with that. And we talk a lot about kindness, and expecting kindness. Well, kindness starts with giving it, right? We have to start there and just extending our homes.
I think we've maybe gotten to a place, maybe I'm wrong, but where it's just like our like little circles that we feel safe with. We're not as welcoming. Maybe that's some of it's had to do just where we've gotten safety. Well, I don't know what it is, but like I wish it would be nice if we paid more attention to that and lived more as a community and saw
I believe that's going on around us. True, because the point you made earlier is very true. It's Christmas, especially. That's a very vulnerable time for people who are maybe on the verge of thinking about suicide or doing something harmful to themselves, very depressed, and you could save a life. Yeah, you could save a life. How meaningful is that?
Right.
Right.
And my husband had an aunt, like a second aunt, so his grandmother's sister. She's gone now too, but Italian, loved to cook, loved to be in the kitchen. And she was the best cook, and she would make these elaborate holiday meals, huge, with food everywhere, and literally invite everyone. She's in a small town, anyone that didn't have a place to go or couldn't afford it to come into her home. And I guess the walls would be like crawling with people.
That is the best. So if you're the person, so maybe you're like, you still got some means and you're still physically well enough to be able to host, but you're by yourself, open up. Wow. Love that.
And her husband passed at an early age, so she was on her own. And that's what she did.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
I love that. The more we talk about these stories and these examples, like the more inspiration you get too.
And the more it becomes like, I could do that.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't I do that? Yeah.
If it is to be,
and then think about it. She was doing that for her to serve her community, and it probably filled her own heart. But we're talking about legacy here. Look at the legacy she left, because now, how many years later? I mean, easily 50 or more years later, you and I are sitting here talking about it on a podcast that she did that.
Dude, I love that line in the song. It's Macklemore. He's got some great lyrics.
Yeah, is it
I can't.
The Good Old Days?
Maybe. I can't tell you the name of the song, but it's a popular one. You've heard it. But it's like they say you die twice, right?
It's Good Old Days.
It is. The first time is when you pass, and then the second time is the last time someone says your name. Yeah. And it was like, oh, right? If that doesn't hit you right in the core, then I don't know why. Yeah, it really does. And, think about that. So it's these it's these layers that we're wanting to add, this richness, right? This fullness, this fulfillment, and contribution is a major piece of these layers. It's the deeper and richer we can get with our life, the more we can look back and say, wow, that I lived well.
Yes.
And I meant something to people.
Right.
And I think at the end of the day, that's what we're really all wanting to know,
Yeah.
right? Is that we mean something to people. And
Yes.
we have so much control with that by starting with helping out others.
And we want to feel like we had a purpose. And, you know, to your point that we did something with our lives, that our lives mattered. And we talk a lot about purpose in the realm of like career or what you want to do next, but your purpose can come from these types of things too. And sometimes that's very often even more meaningful than anything else that you've done, right? Even if you just touched that one life, if you had that one person over. And frankly, Kenny and I, we moved out of state, and because my brothers and their kids were little in Pennsylvania, they would stay there, and it just would work out every once in a while that we ended up here by ourselves. And even though we're together and we're a family, that can still be tough, especially we're from Italian families, so we were used to big, huge holidays. And we had a couple of years early on where we had friends we were just getting to know, but they'd invited us to their home for Christmas Eve. And what a blessing for us. It was I don't know, maybe on a limb for them, but just even those types of things, like pay attention to somebody that you could have a part of your family meal or your family gathering or whatever. I think that's a big thing. I've also shared about my dad before, but I can share it again. Like he had a patient who, she was a single mom, and the kids, she didn't have much. She had 2 older sons, and then she had a little guy she was raising, and they had nothing. They lived in a little apartment. He took me with him. He bought like a whole Christmas for them. And maybe you don't have the means to do that, but for them, it could have been something small, but he got them at the time. It was like the newest Nintendo gaming and the games to go with it. And he had it in a sack, and he said Santa dropped it at his house early and asked him to get it to him. And watching that child, like, and I don't know that I was quite in high school then. I might have been already in high school, but I remember going with my dad, and I knew the people because I used to work at his office part-time, so I must have been a little older. But what a blessing. And the mom didn't know that he was doing that. So watching her face, and the older brothers knew, and they were there like in the background because they welcomed my dad in, and she was just beside herself, and he would like,
you
just something like that.
Something like that, right? On both sides.
None of us will ever forget that.
Right. That's so
and I think the thing that I'm trying to impress here that I didn't even know that I was until we started the conversation is we can look for 100% the bigger organizations, the soup kitchens, I love A21, the human sex trafficking. All of those are such great things, and donating, but those might not be ways. If they're local chapters, we can get involved, but don't miss out on the opportunity for, we don't have to necessarily go that route. There might be somebody right in front of your face in day-to-day life that could use your help in a simple way or a bigger way, and we would maybe miss that because we think it has to be under this tent of a nonprofit or an organization,
That's I've got all these idea bubbles going on.
And you guys probably, because of your practice, you are with the general public so much. So that to my dad's, it was easier for him because he was exposed to so many people. If you're exposed with people day to day, we don't all meet or interact that way.
Right. But a lot of us do have friends that work in certain business types of industries that would have access. Just keep your ear open and keep your ear to the ground for stories of people in need. And, if you're looking for it, something will pop up.
Absolutely.
If you are determined to find somebody to help, you will find somebody who needs it.
And I think just talking about this, and if you're listening and you've heard it, it's amazing how when you speak something, you're thinking about something, all of a sudden,
it just shows up.
It presents itself. Yeah. So, yeah.
Love that about life.
Me too. Yeah. That's why we always want to be speaking positive.
And a point to what your dad did there too is he involved you. So he could have easily just left you home. Mm-hmm. But the fact that you were there by his side, that was just he was not only helping the person, he was being such a great dad in that moment by allowing you that gift to see early on in life how
Yeah.
Giving back can change a person's life.
Yeah.
And how it's so worthwhile.
100%. I think that's why I have such a heart for that, because he did. And that's, again, we used to talk about this all the time. Even though all of our kids in this community are older, they are still watching us and learning from what we do. So what a great gift and lesson to teach them if they see us doing things like this. You know, it's just because then you're really paying it forward. You're not just giving to someone else, but you're setting your kids up to do the same long after you're gone.
Just a total ripple effect there.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, chills.
Oh,
Chill
I have
bumps.
happy feelings now.
Yeah. Me too. I'm just like making a mental list of like, who
I can see your
invite
wheels
for
turning.
Christmas and Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, it just motivates you. I guess it inspires you to like want to do better, do more. And that's, hey, I'm hoping that for many of you, and the fact that I get that back too is just, it's a win for me.
I love it.
Yeah.
Ladies, thank you. Are we good? I'm sorry, I'm going to wrap, and you didn't even tell me to wrap. Usually you're like, come on, let's go. Anything else I didn't mean to cut off?
No.
In good shape? Okay, well, ladies, thank you so much for joining us today. I hope you're enjoying all the magic of the season. And I hope, if you haven't already after this conversation, you will take it upon yourself to maybe reach out. Just at a minimum, keep your eyes and your heart and mind open to what possibly, potentially could use your help or need. I'll link maybe some of our favorite organizations in the show notes. I think that would be a good thing. Some of the things that we know to be good places, things that we've contributed to in the past. And make sure you're following us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok. Website is www.lifeafterkids.com. Have a great day and an even better week, and enjoy all the holidays have to offer.
Thanks for listening. Big, big hugs to you guys.